Hello, hello. It's been a while after all the holidays. And just a fun fact here that Georgians have two New Years. So we had quite a long holidays, and also the opening event has happened and it kind of dragged it. But here we are with the second season of iGaming Accent. And today I'm joined with one of the industry friends and also entrepreneurs and really, really, really good guy at the end of the day, Adi Dagan. Adi,
Hey,
it's nice to have you here. And how you're feeling?
I'm fantastic.
Adi, first of all, tell watchers or listeners a little bit about yourself, about who you are, what you do, and where you come from. And then let's dive into your all the great experiences that you have.
All right. Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to open the second season of this podcast, and I'm really looking forward to having an interesting chat with you guys. So my name is Adi. I'm 45 years old. I'm originally from Israel. I live in Madrid for the past 3 years, and over the past 2 years, I've been working as a senior director of partnerships in OptiMove. But
Mhm.
that comes at the last chapter of 21 years in the gaming industry, where I had the pleasure of transitioning between various roles, most of them around business development and sales, but also entrepreneurship and founding companies, etc. But as I said, on the last couple of years, I've been a happy and proud part of the Optimum team.
Oh, that's great to hear. I hear lots of great things about OptiMove. So we have some interaction beside what we are doing today on the business side as well. So that is good to hear about.
Yeah, correct.
First of all, I'll start with that you have been living in Madrid, right? You
Yeah,
relocated there 3 years ago. So
yeah.
how's the life in Madrid? I'm always curious about the relocation, adaptation, how it's been.
Uh, Fantastic, honestly. The only thing is that I'm still having trouble to get used to the cold weather, but other than that, everything is great. I mean, we always wanted to do a kind of a relocation and a different type of life than what we had in Israel. And 3 years ago, there was an opportunity, and we just decided to move. Actually, with no concrete plans and no significant hooks here, but we just said that we're going to pack the kids and the dog, move to Madrid, and figure out the next step. Took a year off from work, which is highly recommended,
When you
but
do that?
dangerous at the same time because even when you don't work, you're very busy. I mean, we moved the family with 3 kids to Madrid. That's a full-time job for at least 6 or 8 months. So I wasn't like sitting around and doing nothing, but the fact that we had we were lucky enough to take some time off and just focus on family and our own own matters and my own priority was fantastic.
That's great to hear, and it's like one of the great cities that I would
Yeah,
also live in. Like, still cannot decide between like two or three places that I have chosen for relocation, but believe me, it's in top three of even
yeah,
my list. But I really want to get as close to the sea as possible, like to have it
yeah.
like under, let's say, half an hour drive or half an hour walk, and that is like my perfect place.
That's a minus. That's a minus.
Yeah, maybe that's the only minus there, but the food
Yeah,
is
that's what
great, restaurants are great, and everything is great.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. So basically, what I want to start our conversation is around. There is always a funny story of people getting into our industry. So it happened 21 years ago. Maybe you remember some part of it, like how was and what was the how did you get into our industry, and what was the
Uh,
let's say first interaction?
I remember it like it was yesterday, and I will never forget it because it was a life-changing event that actually changed a lot of people's lives. So my background is more of a technical background. I was in the Israeli Air Force for 7 years. Started as a developer, so I learned a lot about technology and software development during my time. Soon enough, I started managing teams in the Air Force because I realized that. I'm not a very good developer and I don't like it and I don't enjoy it. So I'm much better and I prefer to talk to people and tell them what to do than I do it myself. And actually, that's what I've been doing since. So I finished my service and in Israel, I'm not sure if you know, but when people are being released from the army, everyone goes for a long trip. Everyone. So
Mhm.
half of them go to the east and half of them goes to South America. And I happen to go to South America. And a couple of days before I went to South America, I went to a bachelor party of the guy who became my brother-in-law. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
guys in this party was a good fellow called Mor Weiser, who was still working for Oracle back in the days.
Okay.
And we had a chat, like we spoke and we got to know each other. And he told me, listen, you have to call me back when you have to call me when you're back from South America. And I did it. I mean, I went on. It took almost a year. I was there for almost a year. I came back. I called him, and the conversation was like, "Hi, More. How are you doing? How's life in Oracle?" And he told me something around, "Forget Oracle. I have a new thing. It's called Playtech. Come work for me." Basically, the next day I came for an interview. It was completely different than anything else I've ever seen in my life. Obviously, because I came from the army, but it was the first Playtech offices. There were like 25, 30 people in the office. Super cool, young guys, hungry. I obviously didn't know anything about gambling or gaming or casino or poker or whatever. But something in the atmosphere and the vibe was really interesting for me. Basically, a couple of days after, I just started working with them.
Oh, nice. So I assume that Playtech was not that big as well, like 25 people. It was like in the starting years of Playtech as well, or like
Yeah.
first 2 or 3 years, most probably, right? Like,
No, it was. I mean, the office in Israel was very small. In Estonia, I think there were like 100 people or something like that.
ah,
But the
mhm,
office in Israel was very small. It was Avigur Zmora was the CEO. It was even
uh-huh.
before Moran became the CEO. It was a small office, nice people, very very hungry, very savvy, very fast thinking, very determined, and I really, really enjoyed. I mean, there was something in the vibe in the office from the moment I stepped in there. It felt completely different. And I told you that this is the decision that changed a lot of lives, because I think about a couple of weeks after I started, one of the guys, one of the founders, came to me and asked me something along like, "You look like a smart guy. Do you have any other smart friends that you want to bring here?" And I asked him like, "What are you looking for?" He told me, "I don't care. I just need smart people."
Smart people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I told him, well, yeah, and I brought my roommate, who was one of my friends that we grew up together, basically from the age we were
Mm-hmm.
12, and I just brought him to the company, and he started working there. I think a couple of months after, the same question arose, and I brought another friend. Long story short, 18 months after that, we were working, the six of us, six like best friends from Jerusalem, from Israel, from childhood, working in Playtech. So, I always look back at that meeting that I met him at that bachelor party, like the Revolving Doors movie, that this meeting changed a lot of lives. And that friend that I told you about, Yair Panet, later on became my co-founder in the startup that we founded. So everything was like he was a very pivotal moment for a lot of people.
Great. I think that I can relate to many things like what was said here, especially like vibes in our industry and in the companies that we personally me as well started working on, like that feeling that everybody like is very fast moving, very forward thinking, very like smart was the one that kind of eye opener that I'm in the right place, even though I don't know too much about this industry. Like I will learn as I go and I'll make mistakes. And that was completely
Yeah,
okay. Because I think that our industry also allows us to make a lot of mistakes and still get back on and do like really great comebacks. And there have been like lots of examples. And I'm teasing you about the question that is upcoming by the
yeah,
end.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
Just for that. Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you decided to found the company and what was the company about. I think that I won't be asking about the co-founder because it was your best friend, but I will be asking a question: How is it to do with your best friend and deal with the best friend in the role of as a best friend and also a co-founder? So let's
yeah.
just
Sure.
start with the company, like what it was, how it was.
So this was probably 5 years, like after we started working for Playtech, and at
Mm-hmm.
that point, I started feeling that the startup fast paced vibe that we had when we started has started to wear off, and actually, I got pretty bored with what I was doing. We just we had some discussions, me and him, and we just decided that we're going to leave. I mean, we did, honestly, we didn't have any concrete plan of what are we going to do, but we were 30. We didn't have any debts, kids, or obligations. So we just decided that, we're just going to roll the dice. And basically, we just started speaking to a lot of operators in the industry. We're talking about 2010. Big data was something that was just starting to emerge. BI was a very new concept, especially in gaming. And in these things, gaming is a lot of times gaming is a bit of behind other industries as far as technology
Yeah.
trends. Um, and we just figured out that it seems that there was a lack of data and visibility and the ability for operators to analyze their performance. And we just started to kind of develop an MVP to see if it will, relate to a few operators that we knew. And, from here to there, at some point we said, well, maybe we can actually found the company on the base of what we just did. And that's exactly what we did.
One question. So you developed MVP and you, let's say, POC'd it with the operators that you already knew, right? So you already knew the feedback of the potential customers about would it be successful or not. So you, let's say, pre-tested everything before jumping like 100% into a company, or can you like make this timeline much more clearer for me as
Yeah.
well? Because it's kind of interesting, because I will tell you a little bit about our
Okay.
approach, and we almost did the same what you are talking right
Yeah.
now.
So the answer is yes and no. We knew that the direction, sorry, we didn't know. We thought that the direction that we're heading is viable and will make sense and will probably be a good fit for operators. But the actual what we're going to do, we didn't really know.
Yes, yeah.
And as I'm sure you know, you quickly realize that the ideas that you have and the product that you develop inside the lab within your office with your developers is often very different from what the client actually wants. And although between Yair and myself, we had pretty good reach to clients, we had to convince them to give us a shot and try to convince them to use the product. And the reality was that I think the first product was probably a couple of dashboards and a CSV exportable report, which was very, very basic. But you kind of touched on a point that it was extremely crucial for us to get that first design partner. Okay, to get someone who's actually going to be the user of such platform and to give us the feedback of what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And not surprisingly, we were doing a lot of things wrong.
Yeah, of course.
Because of the fact that we were always on the provider side, and we thought we knew what the operator wants. We didn't. I mean, we knew the direction of where
Yeah,
they are
the
supposed
North
to
Star,
go.
let's say like
Yeah,
that.
but what happens on the way, we didn't, and we had to do a lot of begging and sugarcoating and using all of the connections that we had in order to have the privilege of letting someone use the technology that we developed for free, obviously.
Yeah, I think that part is always overlooked, like how hard it is to convince the well-established company, an operator or provider, to try you out when you are just starting up. So, from my personal experience as well, after jumping into doing a startup and doing gamification platform, it pretty soon became relevant that what we were doing and how we were imagining was much like the same thing, but on really, really different paths. So we had to pivot like really fast to make it much more easier to integrate, adapt, and use. And just convincing the first time like a company to use it, trust you, and like make an impact and show it to their own customers and not to fuck up in that moment. Like,
Yes.
I don't know. Like, I think that convincing investors and convincing VC funds is much easier because they look into the idea, execution, the potential market, and
Right.
whatsoever. But convincing the first client, that is not like a, let's say, tier three, tier four company, but at least tier two or white
Yeah. Yeah.
company on the legal market is one of the hardest things, because everybody wants you to be previewed on someone else, let's say, try you out first, and then they get into the train much
Yeah.
easier. But like it's egg after chicken or chicken after egg. So it's always like
Yes.
that. You ask them to try you out and they are like pushing you like where you are. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you provide security? Can you do that? Like everybody wants to preview somewhere else. And after that, like much easier movement is happening. So convincing first client, I think, takes a skill and a lot of sugar coating, because as you said, it's not easy to convince a established business.
So I can comment on that. And actually, this is something that resonates with what I'm doing at the moment in OptiMove. And honestly, the kind of theme of my career since I started, especially in B2B, it's all about relationships. Okay. It's all about building, trustable brand for yourself. So then people speak to Vakho, they know that Vakho doesn't talk shit and stands up for his promises and does whatever needs to be done in order to keep his word. And I think that's the only way where you can actually get those first clients, because you are at the point when you are an early stage founder. Obviously, you want to tell everyone that you already built Tesla, but the reality is that you barely have a bike that is barely working, right? So you need to play the game of whether you're overselling what you have and what you deliver as to what you actually have in your hand.
Delivering, yeah.
And I think that the fine line there comes from being honest and tell people what you have developed, what you're looking to develop, what you're looking to achieve, but be very, very clear about what is the value that they will see now. And obviously, promise them to be your lifetime VIP client for the rest of their life and get everything for free and get the best attention and best agreements and everything.
Yeah.
But this is what we did. I mean, and you spoke about it. I mean, to get it as a small company, to get into enterprises and to big organizations, I think today is easier, by the way. But back in the day, it was very hard, because in reality, you're not just bringing a product, right? You're bringing a product that changes the way the team behaves, and they need to train people and they need to share that knowledge, and a lot of things change, and there's a lot of implications for the product that you are actually want to bring to that organization. So it has a lot to do with personal relationships and how much people trust you, and how much do you actually prove yourself to stand up and deliver on things that you promised.
Yeah, and also beside the fact that you always have a competitors, if not like soon somebody will follow, and we were not like a first one to introduce the gamification layer as well. Like always challenging yourself versus the competitors, and always like trying to prove your point that what you are doing different is always a hard point there as well, because there are a lot of, for example, from our point of industry, there are a lot of good use cases for the existing gamification platforms and like easy, lightweight platforms. But there is also a different approach to that, which is like fully integrated ecosystem with the loyalty and other things. So just explaining that, as you said, like BI was a new word. Like when we entered the
Yeah,
market, also gamification was just starting up. Like there were companies that were talking about, and we're the ones of the first movers, but gamification has become, let's say, go-to thing like in last 2 to 3 years, right? Everybody talks about it, everybody doing it, it's
yeah,
at least some type of it. So it's also a good thing that what you do, and not how you do, but what you do becomes also interesting for the industry itself, and the industry pays much more attention to that part of the part. Can I ask you, like, who was, if you can say, of course, who was your first big client that, let's say, you never forget your first kiss, most probably, and
yeah.
you never forget your first big client that you have landed? And can I ask you who was yours?
Well, the first client that we had was guys called Gimo. They were running Poker 770 NetBet from London. I will never forget those guys and how much credit they gave us. But the biggest agreement that we landed was Ladbrokes. I think it was probably
Wow.
3 years after we founded the company. That was Ladbrokes. They had an office in Israel. I invested and pulled all of the personal relationships and connections that I had into this in order to make this happen. Obviously, we bent over backwards and did everything that they asked us to do in order to tailor things according to their needs and make sure the delivery is spot on, because all we cared about is to be able to put the Ladbrokes logo on our website, on our clients. And as you said, the first ones are the hardest. It's exactly when you go to the gym and you start doing pull-ups. If you haven't done them for 2 years, the first one is like impossible. And you try and you try and you try and try. And after 2 weeks, you manage the first one, then you realize that the second one and the third one are actually easier. And in B2B sales, it's exactly that, right? As you said, the people don't want to be the guinea pig. They don't want to be the ones who,
First
you
ones to
make all
try.
the
Yeah.
mistakes on. But as you said, chicken and the egg, right? You need to get the first one in order to have the second one, but no one wants to be the first one. So this is the battle that you need to fight as a founder among other 10 billion fights that you need to fight on a daily basis.
Yeah, and one thing that really resonates, and I really want to ask this part. So, landing a client that is not a tier one, like Ledbrokes, is considered much easier, right? So, much easier to do, much easier to convince.
Yeah.
But talking with the enterprise client and like the ones that are so big that even like whole your team is like one department, even not a one department
Yes.
of theirs, like it can be half of their department,
Yes.
like let's say
Yeah.
marketing department, and convincing them that and proving that what you have actually works for the skills what they have. And you were with the big data, I understand you had their vision about how much of data is generated and how much transactional data is
Yeah.
generated. When we talk about it's in billions, like just the like sheer fear if they see in your eyes that when they talk like 25 billion events per month, and you have to answer like that's nothing, like we are doing it on daily basis or something like that, and like maximum that you have seen for one client is like 2 to 3 billion, like that is like max. And you have to also like be sure that your
Yeah.
product and everything is built on the latest, let's say, ecosystems that can really handle this data. Is quite a challenge sometimes. But yeah, sorry, getting back to the question. The
Uh,
sales process, yeah, just a little bit off road there. So the question is that how different it is talking with the enterprise clients rather than, let's say, mid to small clients. What is the difference in the sales cycle? And also, is there any different approach that I might be using or our listeners might be using in order to land much easier the enterprise clients rather than they can?
yeah, the answer is yes, definitely yes. There's quite a difference. Because when you're working with a small client, at the end of the day the number of decision makers in the company is probably one or two people that you need to go through. And where you go to speak to a company like Ladbrokes, not only need to speak to the relevant product manager, but you actually has to convince procurement, and you need to speak to legal, and you need to speak to IT and security. And there's a lot of ropes you need to jump on, and a lot of milestones that you need to win in order to win the deal. Because I don't remember the examples, but we've had cases where we met companies, and the main product manager was sold, like he told me, yeah, I want this, but then became issues of legal or security or compliance or whatever, that they just put a brake on it, and there's nothing you can do, because it doesn't matter how much the product manager in Ladbrokes fell in love with your product. If legal department or security for some reason says no, that's it, you're done. And I think you asked how the sales process is looking. Listen, the balance between us as a small company and Ladbrokes was very, very clear, right? From the first meeting. They know we will do everything that we can
Yeah.
in order to get them
They
signed.
have so much leverage. I've been in
I have
that.
nothing. I have
And
nothing.
yeah,
It's
I,
very clear, right? It's like you walk into a room, but everyone knows what's going on, right? I mean, it's like, and I think I have to go back to to the personal relationships, and the fact that you need to stand there and you need to be very positive and confident about what you're selling, but you have to mix it with a bit of honesty and
Mhm.
honestly a bit of bullshitting. Okay, you need to fake it until you make it, probably to some extent, in order to you gave the 25 billion records as an example. Yeah, sure, we can meet that. And I remember like it was yesterday, meetings that I had with my CTO, who used to sit next to me in those meetings, and he is by far, he's not
And
a bullshitter, right? And I used
yeah,
to speak, and he used to kick me below the table and like, what the fuck are you talking about? We cannot do it. And we'd finish the meeting. I told him, I don't care. You just go and do whatever they
figure
asked.
it out.
I didn't even listen to what they said, but you need to do it now. But it's like, it's exactly like when you're going out with a girl that you really, really like. Everyone knows what are we doing now, right? Everyone knows that you're going to do whatever you can in your power to keep that
Yeah,
relationship with her, right? And she knows that you will do everything in your power. So Ladbrokes is the high school sweetheart. She knows that you will do everything in your power. And actually, it's a very interesting situation to be in, and I'm sure you can relate. As a founder,
yeah.
it gets you extremely,
Unfortunately, I
extremely.
am under NDA and I cannot not name, and
Okay.
my startup is not yet on that level that I can name on more than like more companies rather than it's on our website. But just to give you like
But you know the feeling.
I know I am experiencing it right now. I can say that. Like I'm in right now in talks like that, and I'm
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
rooms like that. And one plus that I always see, like not from the leverage side, from the big enterprises, but from the startup point of view, and where I use also it as a power of, let's say, bargain for the conversation to go on, is that as far as we are still small, as far as we are still a startup, and as far as we can be adaptable to your needs, use this moment because we are becoming also big. And after we become big, we won't be that easily, let's say, shaped in a
Yes.
way
Yeah.
that you might use us. So that is the one way that I found when we talk with really big companies like multi country, multi-brand, like more than 50 brands, and like big mergers and acquisitions for the last 10 years, and so on and so forth. What I'm always trying to leverage is that we are still small. We are still a startup. We've been just named as like best startup in 2026. So use this momentum until we become so big that we cannot adapt fast enough for your needs and fast enough towards what you want us to do. And that is also some, let's say, they have a leverage, but you have also leverage of speed, deliverability, and also adaptations. Personally, me, where I always try to balance it out, even when I'm in competition with well-established brands and well-established things. That's the only thing that I found. But one, what you mentioned, and I can really relate to that, is that after your deal is done, let's say, and after you not convince, but after the product guys are happy, operation guys are happy, CEO is happy, the second then start, let's say second date starts. And second date is with legal, and second date is with the security, and second date is with IT.
Fun.
So you have
Fun. Good fun.
another 3 days dates at least to go through. And like I've seen.
It's like meeting the parents and the brothers, right? You need to
Yeah,
get the
exactly.
approval
Before
from
you
the
marry.
family.
Yeah. You have to go through all the checks. Like had an enterprise client that we were talks for 7 months. And within these 7 months, all these dates happened. And imagine that whenever they were like, the fun thing was that on monthly basis, we were still like having a small internal fun. We were sending newsletter to those clients that, hey, like on this month we have added these campaigns, these features, just in order to work on it.
Yeah.
And after 7 months, they were like, guys, these guys are doing something great because every month they are like updating, adding, like
Yeah.
improving, and they have done all what we asked beside even before paying for it. So maybe it's time now to get involved. And like on the last meeting, I remember when they said like, okay, let's go, let's start, let's keep rolling. I was not convinced that they said yes because it was dragged for 7 months. And
Yeah.
like, I was even like, are you sure? Like, are you going to sign this? Like,
Hmm.
are we in the final run? So
Yeah.
only the downside of it, as I see, is that I've seen, as far as we are in the startup space, I've seen too many companies that could not keep up with the slow process of the decision making and legal and security, and just like went out of the business just because of that. Because as a startup, you want to move fast, but
Yes.
you cannot move fast because they like all these process. So sometimes like that is a big downside of the enterprise type and B2B type of
Yeah.
startup as well. You are touching
In,
too many like
no, no.
pain
Listen,
points of mine.
I told you before this call. I mean, you can cry on my shoulder, and I believe I'm telling you that I will. I completely understand the road that you're walking, and I cannot say that I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And I think the one thing that I know for a fact after 13 or 14 years of being a founder is that people who did not walk in that path do not understand what it means
Yeah.
to go in that path. And it comes with so much implication, so many implications on your personal life and who you are and what's your value and how do you perceive yourself and how people perceive you, etc. I mean, it's a whole thing, right? And I think that today maybe it's something that is more common knowledge, right? I can tell you that when we started the company, it was 2010. If you said to people that you have a startup in 2010 in Israel, everyone was like, "Oh, so you're a billionaire, right? So you have a
Yeah,
you have a startup and you're a billionaire." That was the equation: startup equals billionaire. And you need to explain to them, or you can't even explain to them, that it's the exact opposite, because I just invested all of my personal money into this company. I don't have
and
any more
personal time as
savings
well.
and personal time. I don't have any savings. I don't have any prospect. I'm not sure where this is going. And most chances are that I'm going to end up in a way worse position, than what I started off with.
Yeah.
So, and people don't realize that, right? And I think that I told you before, only founders who did this road
Oh,
can understand
yeah.
what you're talking about.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions to till this day is that when you are a company founder or you have a company, even if it's a company or startup, like everybody confuses that you are working for yourself and there is some kind of virtual work life balance there. Well, like
Hmm.
I'm trying always to explain, guys, imagine that all the time you don't put into what you have and what is your personal thing is a time wasted. And imagine when you are working for somebody else, like some like external company or not your company, you can like dedicate a certain amount of time to that and like walk away anytime you want. You can change the company, change the career,
Yeah.
change the.
Yeah.
But when you are doing your thing, it becomes every step becomes much harder to
Yeah.
abandon, and all the like hard workshops that you put into it, like it has some return on investment for sure, but it's not like an instant gratification, as you said.
No.
Like it's not like a startup equals billionaire. It's not. It's like 99% chance to fail and only 1% chance to work it out somehow. And we are always like, you know, in our office we have a scale of years past and startup failure percentage. Yeah, like, and
Yeah.
we are already at 2 year mark. We are still strong, still going, still have a
You see?
runway, so
You
that's
see?
good. But sometimes when you hit up the wall, like most of the time, is that when you cannot explain what you are doing to the friends and family and everybody, and what are the daily struggles, as you said, like only founders
Yeah.
can understand it. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
like when the CEOs are talking to us that we understand daily hustle and blah blah blah, I'm like, okay, but you can change the work tomorrow, right? And
Yeah.
if once you cannot go to the work tomorrow, right? Yeah, you can take 2 months, like 1 2 weeks leave, right? And yeah, like you cannot do when you are
No.
founder. Tell me a little bit what lies ahead of my journey. You know about me and about our company quite a lot, so we are still at like 2 years. I know that you have some successes and like big successes. Tell me a little bit about when company becomes like transforms from startup to, let's say, a company, and then like transitions into acquisition and becomes part of much bigger group.
Okay. How honest do you want me to be? Like
Away,
completely honest?
like 100% honesty is
Okay.
like, but please little bit sugarcoat me for me to have still a
Uh,
motivation to do all this, like in front what we have.
Listen, I'll start from the end. I think at the end of the day, founding something that you do on your own, there's nothing like it, right? And although the journey is composed from endless failures and endless no's and endless, challenges, when you start picking up wins, it just becomes the most joyful journey on the planet. I think what lies ahead is once you start gaining traction, and we go back to this, the fact that no one wants to be the first, but once you get the first, the second, and the third, suddenly people start getting interested, and suddenly people start answering your email, which for the people who may be listening to this podcast is something that is not always
Common.
happening for some. Yeah, I mean, when you are a founder and you're sending emails, you sit like this and just wait for someone to give you some love, to give you some answers, and
Or at least
and
open the email.
at least open the email or get back to you. And after, by the way, after those years of being a founder who sends so many emails with no replies, I promised myself that I will always, always, always answer anyone who's sending me an email.
Yeah.
Okay. because it's just the way you need to treat people. Okay, I'd rather that you tell me that you're not interested rather than just completely ignoring that what I just
I
sent to you.
think that best thing to do is to say no. Like when you are a company and somebody approaches, just say no. Like, no, we are not interested. Okay, it does not take too much time, like 10 seconds of your
Yes,
time. No, I'm not interested.
but
If they
people don't
follow
like
up
to do that.
something, yeah,
People don't like to do that.
yeah, nobody does, like not nobody, but let's say less than 5% or 3% does that, but other 97 doesn't care. I'm not gonna even start that. What actual conversations look like in P2P space and what is the follow-up
Yeah,
rate on that conversation. I'm not gonna even like scare the new founders or new ones entering into B2B space because like I think that first year you have to walk the walk in order to
yes,
understand what we are
yep,
talking right now, and
yeah.
you need to experience it yourself because even though we will tell them, they have to experience it themselves just to know
I
how
agree.
hard it is.
I agree. So without being too grim and dark, once you start getting that initial traction and you bent over backwards and you had to do whatever these that you had to do in order to start picking up clients, you start getting traction. And I remember the first ICE conference that we went to and exhibited. I mean, the first ICE that I went with my partner was in Earl's Court in London, and we were two stupid guys with a backpack and business cards that no one wanted to speak to us. And then 3 years after, we actually had enough money in the bank to get a standard ice, which I think everyone can understand how expensive it is, but it was like super ridiculously expensive. And you get to the point that you have to do again everything on your own because you don't have a marketing
Yeah,
manager, you don't have any, no one. So you're doing everything on your own. But when you get to that conference, you actually start seeing people coming to your stand and you start getting, I think that was probably the time that we started getting our internal validation, right?
hmm,
We came to the conference and we started feeling that people actually understand what we're doing and give us validation to the fact that what we're doing actually makes sense. And here I actually want to kind of share an interesting story because at that point I was literally OptiMove's first competitor. So Pini, who is the OptiMove founder and CEO,
yeah,
and Moti, who is the legendary salesman for OptiMove, were my enemies in my heart. I used to, to follow them. I used to see everything that they're doing because I was the little guy who's competing with them. And OptiMove were already back then a relatively successful company, and they were my nemesis, right? And I used to fight them on every deal, and I had to find creative ways to beat them on deals. And although looking back, I know that they won, their win rate was way bigger than mine, but at
of
least I
course.
managed to sneak some deals
Few,
from their hands. And by the way, it all goes back to personal relationships and how much you're perceived as trusted and how much you can convince people to follow you and how much you actually cash in on that, right? How much you actually deliver on your promises, because our industry is very small, as you know. I mean, if people took Beehive and enjoyed it, they will meet friends at ICE and tell them, oh, by the way, go see the guys from Beehive, they have a nice product. And from there, everything
yeah,
happens. But at the same time, if someone will say, that founder of Beehive, Adi, is an asshole and he's been cheating us and he's not been delivering, that's it, you're
yeah.
done. So, and that's the funny thing about B2B, right? I mean, you were asking about my dog. There she is.
Oh, hi.
Yeah,
What's
her
her
name is
What's her name?
Tokyo.
Tokyo.
Her name is
Nice.
Tokyo. Yeah. So it's that thing. I mean, you need to be able to deliver. Unless if you're not going to do that, your business is going to crash very very fast.
Yeah. I think that on
Okay.
that note as well, like what I can relate is that after landing on big company, like our conversation totally changed because first of all, anybody could relate to them and ask them around. And also they were kind enough like to provide an honest review about us. And like it completely changed the way conversation goes. And like it was a big moral boost for us as well. Like we were not proving anything new. We were just talking about what we were talking before, but now we are like kind of feeling that we are heard. And like that is also very, very, how to say, good for motivation, like internal motivation that we have, that we have proved ourselves in the last 2 years that this has a way big path ahead and we are on the right track there. And one cool thing is that you mentioned ICE first visiting guys, and I remember my first visit at ICE as well. Like I was on the operator side, by the way, and the operator was kind enough to send me as a marketing manager for deals and for like new integrations and stuff like that, meeting with the providers, like new ones or some interesting products that we might be using. And I remember that just walking around, like first year, just walking around, it was like, where am I? What's happening here? How big it is? What?
Yes.
And after the years, it became like, okay, I know where I am, even
Yeah.
though the venue changes, even though like I remember still I had the same story when we didn't have a product. Like first time when we were on SBC, and it was the first time in Barcelona, if I remember it correctly. So we didn't have any product. Like we didn't have anything. Like what we had was just a presentation and some kind of prototype that our friend, like personal friend, is a front end developer, helped us to do. It
Yeah.
was working without any logic. Like just if something was stuck, you had to reload it and it would restart. But nothing was connected to logic. That was the first visit. But we know with whom to talk, with whom to visit, with like whom to start the first conversation, just because that we had the previous experience. And just a year after that, we had a stand, and that was such a great experience. Like first time
It's so
stand,
expensive though.
yeah, yeah, of course. And
As the
for the
founder,
startup,
you're like, oh my God,
I was
why do I have
like,
to pay $500 for internet in ICE? Why do I have to
I
pay five hundred
was
dollars?
like, only reason that we did it was to try it out. Like we needed,
Yes.
like, let's say, a trial in order to, does this really work or not? Because all
Yeah.
the emails they sent, all the LinkedIn connections, all the real talks was not moving forward that fast. And like what we were convinced, if we can convince at least three companies to work with us, it will make sense in 6 months afterwards. So
Yes. Yeah.
we just convinced ourselves that it
Yeah.
will be. And like SBC was kind enough to for the startups, and they did quite good things for us. By the way, all the events have really really good relationship right now with the startups, and I think that is also something that needs to be
Yes.
mentioned. I am always mentioning it because like it gives us exposure, gives us free exposure, let's say like that, and at least meeting point. Even though sometimes it might not
Yes.
be a big stand or
Yeah.
something like that, we still have a meeting point, and that is really good for us because when you can have like you know a pinpoint on the map that come
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
we
Yes.
are doing this it's
That's
already
amazing.
good. Yeah, and we tried like four startup competitions. We were
Okay.
every time we were in the finals, like we had this type of stand, and this year was first time that we won, and I think the last time that we won, because we won't be participating in this part because we took our, let's say, gold trophy about it.
Okay.
But industry has changed in a way that it gives a, let's say, floor for the upcoming startups, and I can vouch for that, personally experiencing that. I think that in your time it might have been like a totally different thing, but just to compare right now, when you are a startup and you are doing something great, you always have an opportunity to be represented, and it's for free, by the way. And that
Mm-hmm.
is one of the
That's lovely.
biggest things. Of course, you can always like have a stand and take a
Mm-hmm.
stand. Just be much faster rather than I was. Like, don't decide it on like 2 months before the conference to take a
That
stand.
always happens.
Yeah, that always happens, but please try at least 6 months to prepare everything and do like
Yeah.
everything properly, because as Adi, you said, you are becoming marketing manager, event manager, communication manager, sales manager, demoing, like even a promo boy, you are the
Legal,
promo.
finance, everything.
Legal, finance, everything is up to you. So be more prepared and be more let's say fun. Like be more relaxed about all of this, because at the end of the day everything is in chaos, but this chaos is what moves you and drives you
Yes.
ahead.
Yes. I agree.
I think that the fun thing is that whenever we were talking, like whatever I wanted to cover, like we focused too many time on that, but I
Okay.
still have so many questions I want to ask, so
I have
I
more
will
time
just,
if you want. We
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
continue.
let's keep rolling. So regarding like we were talking about the competition, how to beat them, how to like well, like your nemesis, OptiMove. Now you're working for OptiMove. That is also
Yes,
a
I am.
very, very,
Yeah.
very good story that I want to dive into. I also know Pini, great guy. So let's go back one step, or tell me a little bit about Beehive acquisition and how it happened and what was the aftermath of it, because like that is always an interesting to hear from the company that was like has walked the path and has walked the walk, like
Hmm.
how it happened, what it was. I was like, tell me honestly, with detail,
Okay, all the details I can tell you, but uh,
not under
listen,
NDA. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, the truth is that from the moment we started, we understood what Beehive is. We knew that we assumed that it's a very probable acquisition target for companies like Playtech, and obviously we knew Playtech from inside. We knew the technology, we knew the people. We assumed that at some point this option is going to open. And actually, at one of the ICE shows, I don't remember. I think it was probably 2000. We were approached by one of the Playtech business develop guys, and they came to my stand and said, I know the guy, right? But he came and said me, Adi, listen, we've been looking at you guys for a while, and we want to start. We want to look at the potential acquisition. And if you remember the conversation that we had about the balance of powers between me and Ladbrokes, now it's me and Playtech, and we all know how this is going to go out, right? Because they know that from the moment that they put this on the table, my focus as a founder has completely shifted, and that's the only thing I can think about. But at the same time, I know that we're getting into a process that God knows how long it will take or how it will end.
Mhm.
And especially with a company like Playtech, which is a very aggressive buyer. I'm saying it in a good way. I have the utmost respect for all of the Playtech guys. They're awesome. The management is like top guys, but it's business, right? And I know that we're gonna go down the road that, and I don't know how it's gonna end. And actually, it took us months to complete the journey. So during those 11 months, I lost my insanity 17,000 times. Again, you remember the emails, and you're sending the emails, and you're waiting for, so you're waiting the first term sheet, and then you're waiting for a first draft, and then they don't respond, and then they do respond. And then I have endless photos from the office of my lawyer where I would just sit there and just wait with him for getting the documents and getting feedback and trying to call people, understand what happened. And obviously, like a lot of acquisition processes, we had a kind of a pause in the process for a few weeks where no one replied my emails, no one answered my calls. And as a founder, again, when you're a small company, you're basically losing your mind because your entire focus is on that deal. But at the same time, you also have a business which you need to give attention to,
Yeah.
and you need to keep serving clients, and you need to keep going to shows, and you need to keep businesses as
Let's say like operational things never go away, and
never.
like that type of part is addition on top of what you are doing on, let's say, daily basis, right?
It's and it's more than that, right?
Yeah.
Because if we go back to the bride and groom comparison, you're now approaching your wedding, and you want to be at your wedding. You want to be in the
In
best
best
shape. You want
shape.
to be like. So you're starting to exaggerate. You're starting to overspend. You're starting to try to do everything that you can in order to bring more clients, and you're getting to a very dangerous point of, like a lot of companies, I either sell or
Sustainability.
I either sell the business or I'm completely fucked. And obviously we got to that point. And again, since the game is so clear and everyone knows, when I'm speaking to the guy from Playtech, he knows exactly what's happening on my side, and he knows that he got me by the balls, pardon my
Yeah.
French.
No, no,
But
no.
then but
That
that
is
but
exactly the French we want.
yeah, but then comes a point at some point in the negotiations where you switched and you actually transitioned, and now they're bought, now they're sold, and now it's like it's yours to win. You just need to be patient and strong, and that's the thing that happened. But it
Uh,
takes a lot of patience, and you need to be a very strong person, and you need to try not to drink too much alcohol to forget about what's going on, and try to work out as much as possible or go to a boxing class or whatever. But yeah, it's a very, very stressful period.
what I want to ask also is that during this 11 month, was there a point that you thought that still is not going through?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
How many times? Most probably, like, second question is much more interesting, right?
almost
Ev-
throughout the entire process, I thought that it's not
yeah.
going to happen. I mean, First of all, you go back to the numbers, right? The number of startups that fail, the number of acquisition discussions that do not
Awesome.
materialize. And plus, I know the people and I know the industry and I know that things can happen and I know that they know. And throughout the entire process, I was always reminding myself for my benefit that this is very likely not to happen. And actually, I told you there were like a couple of months of break during the discussions. If you want to even spice it up and hear of a more personal angle, during that time, my wife got pregnant and
Oh,
we got married, and we got married in the summer, and my wife got pregnant. And the
oh,
funny thing is, and when she got pregnant, one of my investors is a very good friend of mine. He told me something. He told me, listen, you need to remember that kids bring a blessing to your house. And I was like,
yes.
and this was actually during the time that the negotiations were kind of fading away, but things picked up. And the most romantic ending to this story that you can imagine is when I was sitting in the office one day, my wife calls me and tells me, Adi, my water broke, come home. So I had a scooter back then. I won't go up on the
Yeah.
scooter. I drive back home. And when I open the door and I see her waiting for me with a bag, I look at my phone and I see like 15 missed calls from my lawyer. And I call him and it's like, what's going on? And he told me, listen, the papers are ready.
Sign.
The sign the SPA now. And I told him, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to the hospital now. We run to the hospital. I'm driving, red lights, everything. She's screaming.
Yeah.
We get to the hospital, to the emergency room in the hospital. She sits there. My mother sits there. And there's a photo of me with my mother and my wife signing the SPA of Playtech in the emergency room. And that happened like, and 14 hours later, my son was born.
That's like I think that
True story.
I have no comments on that because like I think that blessing was brought at the same time and your investor was a wise guy too and your friend was wise guy to tell you about that because sometimes like most unexpected things happen when we don't expect them at all. And like first thing that I have convinced myself is that when something happens, enjoy it because we
Yeah.
as and founders overlook the good things that happen to us or to the startup that seems to us like as a natural thing. So of course it has to be like this deal has to close. But it's not like that. It has like a ton of work why we came up to this point. So we need to also see it and enjoy it.
So I want to emphasize that because I
Yeah.
don't want to, whoever's going to listen to this and thinking about founding a company probably will regret it. But that's the one thing I do want to say, and I think it's very, very important, but it's very hard to do, is when you have a small team and we have a small startup, you have to stop and smell the roses. You have to stop and enjoy the little wins. Otherwise, you would not survive. You have to be able to, when you're signing that first client, take the team, go have a night out, spend all of the money that you don't have. But when you're getting that first term sheet, go ahead and enjoy it and celebrate it. Because this is what actually fuels
Yeah.
the company, right? Because you're facing a reality that is basically built by negativity and challenges and no, 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 no from employees that you want to recruit, and no from clients, and no from investors, and no for partners, no for everyone. So when you get those yeses, celebrate them.
I think that it's not recommendation. That life lesson should not be missed because we are three founders and we are encouraging ourselves. Like whoever somebody is responsible for, let's say, celebration, and we have like a tradition, by the way, that everybody who goes away on a holiday brings back an alcohol. I know
Hmm.
I'll be talking about alcohol right now. It's a bad
No
thing.
problem.
Don't drink. Like
Yeah.
drink responsibly only, and blah blah blah. But we have a tradition when the deal is closed, even though it's small, even though for the big deals we have another tradition, but for small deals I will tell. We have a full, let's say, wall of different drinks brought from different places
Hmm.
around the world,
Okay.
and we open one. That is the first tradition that we have. So
Okay.
we, at least with the team, celebrate in some way as a tradition. So we need to celebrate. For medium and big ones, everybody is out on a
The entire
Friday.
wall. We drink the
Yeah,
entire wall.
everything, like open up everything, whatever you want, and let's go out and have a night out, like a
Hmm.
big night out. Because at the end of the day, that also drives the communication, drives the encouragement, drives the, let's say, interconnection of the team itself, and also fuels you because you have something to celebrate. Because I remember at the beginnings, we didn't celebrate it. We closed For example, I will tell, I don't care about that is already also, we closed $500,000 deal and we didn't celebrate. It was like, it should have happened.
Yes.
And like later when we look back to it, like why the fuck didn't, like we were like nothing. We had
Yes.
like nothing. What, like whatever, what else you need to do? But yeah, like that deal was like half there, but all in all, you have to celebrate on the day one.
You
So
have to.
that is
You have to.
important. After that, I think that we made a pact to do that on even on small places, and we are still trying to do that. Okay, so I think that we passed the limit of everything, but I still have, as far as you are close to this, let's say, heart of the city of Real Madrid, I want to ask you about one
Mhm.
important question. I think that our like friends of ours were are asking too much.
Yeah.
How do you think? How long will Alvaro Arbeloa have and last as a head coach?
Okay, I will give a non-popular answer. First of all, I'm not a Real Madrid fan.
Okay.
When I first moved to Madrid, even before, I happened to go to an Atletico match,
Mm-hmm.
and I just fell in love with the
Yeah.
atmosphere and the stadium, and it seems much more realistic than Real Madrid. Real Madrid always looks to me like the tourist company, the tourist team that when I went to the Bernabeu for the first time, it was exactly as I imagined. There was like half of them were Japanese and Chinese and people from all over the world and no soul. But in Atletico, it's only families and grandmothers and grandparents going with their kids. So to answer your question, I don't think he will last too long. Real Madrid is a business organization, and if he's not going to make it to the next round of the Champions League, they're probably waiting for him to
Fail.
fail.
Oh,
I don't think he will finish the season. I don't think he will finish
okay.
the season. No.
Okay, so let's transition then to the dessert of our podcast. So we have a tradition on the podcast as well.
Okay.
And for season two, we are still continuing it. So the tradition is a blind question. So we have a question from Anton Kazubowski, and he left you a question. And also after the question and after your answer, for sure, you have to leave the blind question to the next one. So now I will ask his question word by word. I will read it out loud. So, what is the most expensive mistake you have personally made in your career, whether it will be financial, reputational, or even emotional? And also, there is a follow up question. How would you handle it today if you had a chance of starting over or doing it one more time? Hard question, I can
A
say.
very hard question. I need to think about it. Give me a minute. There's a lot of them. I just think what I want to, say on the air. But obviously, I made a lot of expensive mistakes in my life. So I think the most expensive mistake that I've done, and it's not necessarily financially. I mean, it's also financially, but it has a lot of other implications. When I after we sold the company and I sold it to Playtech and I spent my time in Playtech and I was looking at my next chapter, I decided to jump into another startup that I was a co-founder in, and basically it was a B2C company. And I think that when I took that decision, I felt somewhere in my stomach that I'm doing something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think the DNA of the team didn't
Quite.
suit me. But at the same time, it was a group of my friends again, and it was doing the same thing with my co-founder Yair, who we're close friends until this day as well. But I stepped into something that seemed to be too romantic, and it was too much of an emotional decision rather than a
Mm-hmm.
business decision. Yeah, I think that and if there's something to say about, and we didn't really touch it too much, but there's something I want to say about picking the correct founding team is
Yeah.
everything. It's everything. It's There's nothing more important than that. And I think one of the things I love the most about where I am today in OptiMove is that I had the pleasure and honor to work with Pini and Moti and Mosh, we're not co-founders, right? And I'm a small piece of the organization, but team is everything, and people
Yeah.
is everything, especially in B2B. But nevertheless, in every business that you're founding, and when you're founding a business, you need to make sure that your team is solid, because these are your brothers in battle.
arms.
It's exactly
Yeah.
like the army. You're going to be facing a lot of shit together, and you need to make sure that you trust them and they trust you, and you're going to get through whatever is going to come in, and everything is going to come in. So that's how I'm going to end it.
Yeah. Uh, I can only confirm that choosing your co-founder is like choosing your
Yeah,
partner. So choose wisely and choose like don't be emotional only on emotional side. Be on
exactly.
emotional and business side altogether and see where your minuses are his pluses and his pluses are your minuses in order to
Yes.
balance out. So I think that's why I'm always confident in my co-founding team. Like one is more technical, one is more analytical and
Yeah.
financial, and there is also me, like somebody in between, like running around on everything. So yeah, that's also important. So Adi, next thing, like I need a question from you for the next guest.
So I've discussed, I thought about a few of them, but I think I'll go with, I wrote it down here. What's the decision you're proud of today, but when you took it, it looked like the wrong decision to make?
That's some kind of twist there. So I like it. I like
Yeah.
it a lot. So first of all, Adi, thank you. By the way, we had to talk like today. I was like hoping to talk about little bit about CRM, about where the industry is going, but we
Listen,
can
you can
have it.
invite me to the next chapter and then I will
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
my own
exactly.
question.
Yeah, exactly. So we will have like season 3 as well, and we can reinvite you, and
Okay.
we will see how everything is going. So Adi, first of all, thank you for being here and for being such a good guest. And just to remind our listeners and subscribers, you can listen to our podcast in every of your favorite channels. It might be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatsoever. And this was first episode of season 2 of iGaming Accent, brought to you by SBC Eurasia, and we'll back with you in 2 weeks. Thank you, enjoy,
Thank you, my
and be
friend.
safe. Bye.
Bye bye.